Blake Lively thought she had executed the perfect legal chess move, insulating herself behind a hyper-specific California law to completely dismantle Justin Baldoni's looming $400 million defamation suit. For over a year, this strategy worked flawlessly, allowing her legal team to control the narrative and keep her entirely out of the line of fire. But this week, the entire defense collapsed under a massive public relations blow from the least expected source possible. The woman who actually conceptualized, drafted, and fought to pass that exact law broke her silence. Victoria Burke, a prominent attorney and law professor, went public on Instagram, completely stripping away Blake's moral high ground. Burke did not mince words, explicitly stating that Blake's legal team is taking a piece of legislation meant to safeguard vulnerable survivors and twisting it into a corporate cudgel. This unexpected intervention instantly transforms a dry, technical courtroom skirmish into a high-stakes cultural firestorm, altering the optics of the entire case and leaving legal experts wondering if Blake's aggressive strategy has finally backfired. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest twists in this Hollywood legal war, smash that like button right now. To understand exactly how we arrived at this unprecedented legal bottleneck, you have to look back to the political landscape of 2023. That was the year California passed the Speak Your Truth Act, codified under Civil Code Section 47.1. This legislation was hailed as a monumental victory for civil rights, engineered specifically to prevent powerful individuals from weaponizing defamation lawsuits to silence survivors of workplace misconduct and sexual harassment. Historically, predators or toxic employers used a tactic known as a strategic lawsuit against public participation, or a SLAP suit, to bury victims under mountains of legal debt until they retracted their statements. The Speak Your Truth Act effectively neutralized this tactic by creating an immediate, robust defense. If an individual speaks out about harassment or discrimination through official channels, any subsequent defamation suit filed against them can be summarily thrown out of court. When Baldoni filed his massive $400 million action against Lively, alleging her public statements permanently destroyed his career and production company, Blake's legal team immediately triggered Section 47.1. They argued that because her initial complaints had been lodged directly with the California Civil Rights Department, her speech was completely protected under state law. The judge agreed, and Baldoni's multi-million-dollar offensive was instantly crushed. Under normal circumstances, getting a $400 million lawsuit dismissed before it even reaches a jury is a historic, definitive victory. Most high-profile celebrities would quietly celebrate, sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement, and retreat to the safety of a public relations rehabilitation tour. But this is where Blake Lively's legal strategy took an incredibly aggressive, highly controversial turn that shocked the entertainment industry. Even after both parties reached a private settlement regarding the primary dispute, a settlement that notably involved $0 changing hands, Blake's attorneys refused to drop the matter. Instead, they marched back into the courtroom, holding the Speak Your Truth Act like a weapon rather than a shield. They utilized a specific clause within the fee-shifting framework of the law to demand that Justin Baldoni personally reimburse millions of dollars in attorney fees. More shockingly, they filed motions seeking triple damages and heavy punitive penalties against him, arguing that his initial lawsuit was so malicious it warranted severe financial punishment. It was no longer a matter of defense. It was a calculated attempt to financially ruin Baldoni long after the main battle had concluded. This aggressive maneuvering is precisely what caught the attention of Victoria Burke, the legal architect behind the bill. Watching from afar as her career-defining legislation was used to squeeze punitive damages out of a closed case, Burke decided she could no longer remain silent. In a series of highly publicized social media statements, Burke delivered a devastating blow to Lively's public image, branding Blake's ongoing courtroom strategy a weaponized PR redemption tool. Burke explicitly reaffirmed that while she firmly believes in the absolute constitutionality of the Speak Your Truth Act, she is profoundly disturbed by its current application in this specific celebrity feud. She expressed genuine intellectual and ethical bewilderment over why a legal fight of this magnitude was being kept on life support by Blake's team after a settlement had already been finalized. When the very person who defined the intent of a law publicly states that you are exploiting it for a corporate public relations cleanup, the narrative shift is seismic. Blake Lively was no longer the textbook example of a survivor protected by progressive legislation. She was suddenly framed as an elite Hollywood figure using a loophole to extract maximum vengeance. Behind the public relations war lies a complex, incredibly messy jurisdictional knot that the judge is currently forced to untangle. The primary legal argument put forward by Baldoni's legal team centers on geographic reality and legislative overreach. Baldoni's lawyers are fiercely arguing that California law has absolutely no business governing this case whatsoever. They point out that the actual day-to-day filming, the alleged workplace friction, and the core conduct of both parties took place almost exclusively in the states of New York and New Jersey. From their perspective, Blake's team committed a form of forum shopping, flying across the country to file a complaint in California purely because its progressive laws offered a distinct legal advantage. Conversely, Blake's attorneys are holding their ground, insisting that because her initial corporate and administrative complaints were processed through California's regulatory bodies, the state retains complete jurisdiction over the fallout. This debate exposes a massive flaw in modern entertainment law. When a production spans multiple states but involves entities based on the West Coast, which taxpayers' laws actually apply to the dispute? Beyond the geographic fighting, Baldoni's team has leveled a highly technical, potentially devastating statutory argument that strikes at the very heart of Blake's financial demands. They are highlighting the inherent paradox of a plaintiff seeking massive financial penalties under a fee-shifting statute when they have already agreed to a settlement of $0. In traditional civil law, to receive triple damages or punitive fees, a party must first establish a foundational baseline of actual proven harm that a court recognizes with a monetary award. Baldoni's defense notes that Blake Lively did not prove a single allegation in a court of law, nor did she secure a single cent of compensation in their private settlement. Therefore, they argue, it is legally absurd for her to demand punitive bonuses when her baseline damages are objectively non-existent. You cannot multiply 0 by 3 to get millions of dollars in triple damages. This argument places Blake's team in a dangerous logical corner, forcing them to convince a highly skeptical judge that a $0 walkaway settlement still constitutes a roaring victory worthy of historic financial penalties. The upcoming ruling from the bench carries stakes that are genuinely terrifying for both sides, with careers, reputations, and millions of dollars hanging entirely in the balance. If the judge ultimately sides with Blake Lively, the financial consequences for Justin Baldoni will be immediate and catastrophic. Because his legal team made the incredibly risky gamble to waive their right to appeal during the earlier stages of the settlement negotiations, Baldoni has completely blocked his own exit routes. If this judge orders him to pay Blake's multi-million-dollar legal bills and punitive fees, that order is final. He cannot drag the case out in appellate courts. He cannot look for a second opinion. He will have to liquidate assets and write a massive check to his rival, effectively cementing his financial ruin. For Blake, a victory here would mean total vindication, forcing the industry to acknowledge her as the absolute victor of the 18-month war, while providing her with a massive pile of cash to offset her extensive legal expenditures. However, if the judge rules against Blake Lively, the collapse of her legal strategy will be total and unforgiving. She will walk away from an excruciatingly public 18-month legal nightmare with absolutely nothing to show for it. No compensation, no reimbursement for her own astronomical attorney fees, and no legal leverage left to wield. Worse yet, her reputation will take a permanent hit, forever associated with an aggressive legal overreach that was publicly condemned by the very author of the law she tried to hide behind. Furthermore, the fallout will extend far beyond Hollywood. If Blake loses, the Speak Your Truth Act itself will be thrust into a period of intense legislative scrutiny and skepticism, potentially forcing California lawmakers to amend and weaken the bill to prevent future celebrity exploitation. By pushing the boundaries of this law so aggressively, Blake has inadvertently put a critical protection tool for everyday survivors at risk. As we await the judge's final decision, the central question shifts from the courtroom to the audience. Has Blake Lively truly crossed an ethical line, or is this just standard protocol in the brutal world of celebrity warfare?